name's Gabriel, and this is my co-leader Hondo. We're with the Cyber Jedi's research group, Cyber Warfare and National Security. Start off things. How's everyone doing today? Good.
Let me start them off. So, before we get into any exploitation, how much do you know about cybersecurity? Like, do you have a baseline? Do you anything interest you? Anything specific on your mind about it? Any interesting news you hear? Cool. Alrighty. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. So, we have a room for you guys to try if you want to follow along. If you have a Try Hack Me account, you can go ahead and sign up for it, but we will be running through even regardless without it. However, today we have a lab for you guys. We will be exploiting a vulnerability called Eternal Blue on a legacy Windows system, specifically Windows 7. So,
next one. So I want to get a quick question. How many of you guys are cybersecurity majors? How many are computer science? How many of you are familiar with Eternal Blue? All right, click it on. Eternal Blue is an exploit for a Windows SMB1 vulnerability, which targets older Windows systems using SPF1. It allows remote code execution using specially crafted packets, and one vulnerable machine can allow malware to spread across a network. Next slide. Yeah. So where did it come from? Eternal Blue was developed by the U.S. National Security Agency, the NSA, as an exploit for a Windows System V1 vulnerability. It was later stolen and leaked online back in 2017 by the shadow brokers. Now, Microsoft released a patch for this in March of 2017, but many systems remain unpatched. So because of this is what happened. In May the 12th, WannaCry spreads worldwide, and later on, a month later, in June, NotPetya caused massive destruction. Now I want to emphasize that both of these are both using the results of Eternal Blue. Go to the next one. Go more into depth about WannaCry. It was a global ransomware outbreak that began in May 12th. Actually, I'm going to slow down. How many of you are familiar with WannaCry?
How about ransomware?
So you guys are not familiar with it? Okay. So it was a global ransomware outbreak that began on May the 12th, spreading to 200,000 plus computers across 150 plus countries. It spread rapidly using the Eternal Blue exploit, which targeted older unpatched Windows systems through the SMB vulnerability, which I mentioned before. Major victims included FedEx, Honda, Nissan, and the UK's National Health Service, which had to divert ambulance and disrupt operations. Now, fortunately, it was temporarily stopped when a security researcher by the name of Marcus Hutchins discovered a kill switch domain registering it, causing the malware to stop executing. And now, that is awful.
You want to put on the mic?
Yes, we'll put on the mic. This is the shared one, correct? You're on the shared one?
Yes.
Yeah, that messed up badly.
Okay.
How did that happen?
You made this. Anyway.
Okay. Sorry about that. That was embarrassing, to say the least. And then there's NotPetya. That was a major cyber attack launched a month after WannaCry, and it used the same external blue method. And unlike the ransomware WannaCry did, NotPetya was designed with the sole intention of destroying stuff, meaning victims could not recover their data even if they paid. It caused disruption via encrypting critical system structures like the master file table and the master boot record. And the estimated damages exceeded $10 billion, making it one of the most costly cyber attacks in history. So, why did it cause global chaos? For starters, it was worm capable. Ransomware normally spreads by email or clicking, and WannaCry spread it automatically due to said worm behavior. Can you move this down, by the way? Yeah, this is oh, yes, I'm so sorry. That's okay. Push this right here. And Eternal Blue gave it the ability to jump to machine fast. So once one system gets compromised by it, it's over. So the real world impact: WannaCry, 200 plus thousand systems, 150 countries, over 150, and it hit the major organizations, including the UK's Health Service. NotPetya, It was not true ransomware, but it was designed to destroy systems. So why does it still matter today? I think everyone knows that many organizations still have unpatched systems, and legacy Windows still exists in hospitals, manufacturing, government networks, and small business environments. So what will we be doing today? This is where we'll be getting into that hands-on activity. So I'll let you take from here on, Ando.
So, with our activity, we will be following the Lockheed kill chain, which is a model of how attacks are framework to defend the cybersecurity industry. So there are several steps, and they're all, this is all basic red team knowledge, but if you've never seen it before, it is a great framework to be like, how do I conduct a cyber attack? So, we'll also have some Metasploit experience, and we'll be showcasing the risk with these outdated systems. Even if you've never seen one, you could have heard of them, like, oh, companies use legacy systems. But how will this affect them? And we will see about that. So, the first thing we will be doing is we have our Kali Linux booted up here.
Okay, and just to start things off, how many people here have Kali Linux installed on their laptop?
It is free to follow along if you sign up for an account. But since most of you do not have it, this is free, by the way, but we'll just be walking through it. You feel free to take notes or process as you go on. But here we have our lab. It's called Blue, and we will be exploiting Eternal Blue. So if in the first phase of our attack, we have the reconnaissance phase. This is where you figure out what services are running, what type of computer you're attacking, what kind of network devices are connected to it, and any statistics you may have for this computer. So we'll be using several flags of our scan, and we will be looking at the output. So if I go ahead and run it, oops. There we go. We'll go ahead and see that it starts scanning the network. How familiar are we with IP addresses and ports? Somewhat. So, can anyone tell me some common ports? What would be 22? SSH. How about 21? What's HTTPs? What is HTTPS's? Yeah, 4 something. 80 is non-secure. So, we have a couple of those on here, but you'll be seeing a couple more ports on here in a second. You can see that it takes quite a while to scan because we have so many services running on the system. However, we've already discovered a couple of ports. Does anybody know what TCP is? You want to say it? Transfer Control Protocol. So it's essentially how network devices communicate in the transfer layer of the network stack. So it's how you can connect to the network. It's one of the basic big steps to connecting to a network. So we're about 99% done for scan. This can take hours even if you're hacking a large network, but we're doing quite well with it. We have a couple questions down here too as well, but we'll get to it when the scan finishes.
While we're waiting for the scan, yeah, how many of you guys are computer science majors again? What activities you guys do? What classes typically? Just out of curiosity, for the cybersecurity.
Okay. I want to put it on. Yeah. Alrighty, we can answer his question if you would like. But
Just want to get a perspective.
I know we do a lot of like programming 1 and 2, and then after going to software engineering, popular, like data science classes. And a big one is we usually take operating systems. That's about like the most we go into cybersecurity.
Alrighty.
So like Debian, Linux, Windows.
Yeah.
So our scan is finished. Now, you want to have a volunteer? We have a question here. How many ports are open with the number under 1,000? I could try to zoom this in. There we go. But we have a couple ports here. How many open above 1,000? I have one as well. So we have about 3 ports here, 135, 139, and 445. They each indicate a Windows system, Windows 7 Professional specifically, with an RPC and NetBIOS server setup. You don't need to know the specifics of that. All you need to know is that 3 ports are open, and our script is determined that it is vulnerable to Eternal Blue. So, what does that mean? It is this Metasploit right here. This code right here is short for here. This indicates an Eternal Blue vulnerability. So MS17-010. Now, what can we actually do with this information? Well, in Kali Linux, we have a tool called Metasploit. It is a framework used to host exploits, and you can use them to attack systems that you know are vulnerable. So if I open up MSF console, that will allow us to open the framework and begin our attack. So here it is. All right, so we can search for our exploit. We can see up here the first result is our Eternal Blue exploit. I'm trying to figure out how to zoom it in. There we go. Are you guys able to see that well? Okay. So, you have our Eternal Blue exploit up here. So, exploit, Windows, SMB. So we can load our module into here. Now this is pretty simple. It loads a reverse TCP shell, which is essentially a program that tells the computer, hey, you need to communicate with this computer in this outside network. And then we load the module, which is a program designed to actually get to the exploit. So the exploitation code is exploit Windows SMB MS17 Eternal Blue. Now, we can't just run it straight away. We have to set a couple options. So if I show options, you can see you have one for rhost. Rhost means remote host, which is the computer that you're attacking. The rest automatically fill out, so we can set our options. Our host is going to be our IP. So that's up here. And I will set lhost as well to our IP, to our VPN. There you go. Now, all of this is set up. It's as simple as just running exploit or run. So, we will run the attack. You can start to see it begin. What it is doing is trying to contact the server that it's able to see, overload the SMB server with corrupted packets until it accepts argument. Have you ever heard of a race condition before in programming? Race condition is basically when a program is like, hey, I have so many things going on. Hey, I see this new like memory value. Let me just take it because it'll swap in with something currently running. So that's a race condition. And you can see we have triggered free of it, and we've successfully gained access to the system. Now, if I run a who am I in the shell, you can see there's a file system down here. That's the actual PC. So, who am I? I am NT Authority System, which is an administration account built into Windows. It conducts a lot of like services running, and you can just hijack it. You can get its options, you can get its privileges, and begin exploiting from there. So, what do we do once we're here? We're gonna back out of this, we're gonna background it, and we're gonna load a couple shells. So, we have something called interpreter. That's what actually accesses the system. However, we have to actually escalate that so we can get the administrator privileges in the shell. So, host, module, this one's always really long. So we're going to use a tool called Shelter Interpreter. So we're going to have post multi-managed Shelter Interpreter. That is our code. So there you go. Well,
You mentioned earlier before you go into operating systems.
Yeah.
What year are you in?
I'm a junior right now.
How do you guys start in class on operating systems?
no, I don't think.
So can I ask for the details of what you do in that class?
Yeah, so a lot of what we do in OS is we play around with like how operating systems work. We learn about how CPUs actually handle a lot of the tasks and how it splits it up. Rookie took it like a little bit ago, so that's all I remember. I know there's a couple more.
Do you know like processes, threads, that kind of thing?
We learned about threads, yes. I don't know if we went into too much detail. I don't have too much memory on it. But I do know we learned about like threads and how they work.
I see why it's not working.
So you understand the workings of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much using code to like handle operating system directly, so it makes it faster.
Here we are taking advantage of any holes in those operating systems and you guys work on it.
There we go. Finally got it working. So, I'm going to list the sessions. Session-L. There we go. So we can see our current system running. And we're just going to select the session. So we're going to set session 1. And we're going to upgrade it. There we go. So, we've upgraded it to another session. All of this really means is that we gain the privileges of whatever we run. So, if we go into the session, and start a shell, who am I? And if we run PS, you can see a list of processes here now. So, we're running under NT authority system. We have its privileges. Now, we need to select one of these tasks to hijack so we can actually start doing things. So, if it has NT authority system, you can pick it. Any of you want to pick one from up here? It's like gambling. We're going to see if it works or not. You want to pick one, Gabe? If it has NT authority system.
LSM.exe.
Okay. LSM, so. Oh, it's migrate. So, these are processes running on the system. We've migrated completely, and we gained the privileges set by that program. So, now what we want to do is we want to gain the password to the system. We want to be able to actually access it, not just from a shell, but perhaps from the GUI. So, who knows what a GUI is? Yes, your graphical user interface, just, what you interact with. So, that's what the main goal of this lab is. So, let's see what we can do. We can run hash dump, and we gain the hashes of the passwords just stored on the system. So, if I copy them, I already have a text file of them here, so I can just run it simply. If I run hashcat on it, actually, it would be even easier if I just copy this. Yeah. Well, you can find tools online. It'll make it even easier than using hashcat. There we go. CrackStation's awesome for this kind of thing. Sure, buddy.
I can tell you one thing, this is the bane of all cybersecurity. For cases.
Every time we gotta deal with them, but you guys design websites, I'm sure you know it's secure. We thank you for it being secure, but
I have a love and hate relationship. If you put a recaptcha on there, I'm pretty sure you're going to stop a lot of cyber attacks. So please do that. For the love of God, make it an easy process.
so.
But you already selected all. There's a bike there.
Can't even tell with this resolution.
That was a.
It's a wheelchair. There we go. So, you have the hashes dumped. You can get the password. We have our account John, And then here's the password. You know, just like that, we're able to crack a Windows user account, get the password. Now we can actually log in and find flags. Who's done a capture the flag before? They're essentially like cybersecurity events where you find vulnerabilities and task challenges, you know, decrypt codes. They're honestly kind of fun. But now, normally you're supposed to be searching through here, through a shell. However, in our presentation, which I've kind of neglected to do, because it's mostly just a repeat of everything I've been doing, you have extra code here to force remote desktop privileges. So, if I go into the shell,
You put in a .xbar or convert it.
nope. And then we add an exception in the firewall. Nobody knows you will be doing this under system, by the way. I can launch a tool called Remina. Change the IP here to the one we have for our target. Save, connect. And here we are able to actually see and log into the system. Now Amazon doesn't activate their system, so we're going to get like a bad resolution, but here's our system. Let's get our flags. So the first one here is, it'll be on the root. If you know anything about operating systems, that's like the very beginning of the OS. So local disk, user flag, and if we put it into the website, there it is. So the second one says it can be found where we actually got the passwords when we dumped them. So where are they in these systems? Well, in older systems, they're in a folder called the SAM file. So if you go to Windows System 32, and then should be config, there we go. And then there it is. Database elevated access, you know. This is a very simple Windows system. It's very insecure, but, you know. The third one says it can be found, you know, where hackers like to loot. Do you have an idea of where they might be able, what they might be looking for? What might hackers be after?
This is anything, any sensitive information you put on a computer.
What folder would it be under?
Say that about it? Documents?
Let's check it. So, your documents folder is located in users documents. Yeah, there it is. So we've completed this room, and I guess we'll go back to the presentation really quick. So what did we just do? We ran through the attack chain using these steps over here. So our weaponization and delivery part, that's when we actually loaded the exploit into memory and set all the options. And then the delivery is when we ran it. The exploitation, escalation, and installation is when we finally say, hey, let's upgrade it. It's running on the system. Let's upgrade the session, get actual administrator privileges, and continue from here. Our C2 in actions, so our C2 server, is when we say, hey, can we remote files back to it? Can we access it from our system? Can we gain passwords or documents or anything like that? If you want to take pictures, I'll also send the presentation out to them so you can download it yourself. But here's our remote desktop and then our post-exploitation. So what does this all mean? Why did we show all of this? Well, if I go over here to our Action Center, where Windows has security, we can see a lot of red. Everything is disabled. Your virus protection is out of date. Network firewall is down. We need a scan. We don't have a backup. You know, all of this important stuff. So we mentioned it a bit earlier, but I want to ask, what can this implicate for users? Why is this a bad thing? Potentially, but more running legacy systems. How would that affect people? Yeah. Yeah. So there's this, is it worth it? It could be in some cases. Most of the time you want to upgrade if you can, but if you're familiar with cybersecurity, we have this thing called the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If you have like availability as your main priority, you don't want your systems going down. Like if you're a hospital or a power plant, you don't want them going down. We don't want any downtime to prevent loss of life or electricity or anything like that. So we can't take these systems down to upgrade. So we still run these legacy systems.
So now I'll ask a question. Anyone can answer. How many hospitals do they use allocated systems? Give a number, like a percentage. If you had to think. What'd you say?
Do you have the stats?
Yeah, that's near accurate. Roughly 76% of hospitals are still on legacy systems.
How about critical infrastructure?
Critical infrastructure, how many of you guys think that's still on legacy systems? You said 52? There's 10 critical federal IT systems that are still using out-of-date software.
Out of how many? Quite a few, but still a high number. Anyone can be susceptible to any external threats. You have APTs like Russia, China, North Korea, those kind of things, or your cyber criminals. Everyone's looking for easy targets like we just exploited here. This was stupidly easy for a hacker to be like, hey, let me just sweep this entire network. Whatever's vulnerable, let's attack it. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so now how many of you guys are familiar with APTs? Or even heard of the word or heard of the concept of APT? You're in our cyber warfare group. It does not count. Okay, APTs are your advanced persistent threats. These are usually state actors that work with their government to commit large-scale cyber operations. Now, we haven't mentioned this, but the WannaCry ransomware attack is largely attributed to North Korea's Lazarus. And if you're familiar with them, back in 2014, has anyone heard of the interview with Seth Rogen? Does anyone know what happened? They did not like it, and that resulted in the 2014 civil war.
I'll pull that up real quick.
And this was the very first time we were able to see just how dangerous cyber threats can be.
Where's the North Korea? There it is.
All the way down there.
Yeah. I just want to present. Oh.
You presented it from the very beginning.
It's fine. There we go.
So when you're also dealing with cybersecurity, you also have to take a look into motivations, potential motivations. Some people are in it for ego, others are in it for money, and you have people who do it for political reasons. You're activists like Anonymous, for example. So for Lazarus Group, it was ransomware, and their biggest motivation relies on money. And now I think I don't have to do a little crash course history on North Korea, but they're sanctioned pretty much everywhere in the world. Due to multiple health violations, an insecure dictator, you name it. So you have to get your money from somewhere in order to make weapons and all that. So how would you do that? Ransomware. Or cryptocurrency exchange hacks.
All of this leads back into eternal blue, because That's the main exploit they used. You know, we had legacy systems, they were vulnerable. North Korea spotted that and proceeded to do exactly from the exact T what we did to exploit these systems. So, that's about all we have here. But, you know, I just want to thank you guys for hosting us. You know, this is a fun lab. We love showing this at the beginning of our research group to show, like, you know how easy it is to hack systems that may have these vulnerabilities, especially if they're older. We love to show that, you know, even if you have no experience, you can go home, learn this really quick. They have guides and learn how to hack these systems. Now, please don't actually go around hacking. That is a felony. You will not get a job if you do that. But it is fun to mess around with in controlled environments like this. Any questions or thoughts, comments? Plenty of them, yes. Especially if like free and open source software, they often come with sometimes vulnerabilities. I can pull one up that was the Notepad hack that happened this year, where it was actually hijacked by Chinese hackers. Which, you know, Notepad's Windows, Linux, it's free and open source software. It can affect many software: Mac, Linux, even iPhones and Androids. Any other questions, comments? So the thing we constantly hammer into people in cybersecurity is something called network segmentation, where you have separate networks that aren't connected to each other. So you can have like, here's the external, like the website and everything, and then off in the corner you have like the operational technology. So it's like running in a separate network. They never communicate. So unless you have like physical in-person access, usually you can't access those systems, but you know, there's sometimes insider threats or something.
Speaking of insider threats, are you guys familiar with them? Can you name a popular example of an insider threat? Snowden? That is correct.
Did you have another one?
No.
Okay. Here's another one. Robert Hansen. He was the biggest KGB agent within the FBI. You know, we research him sometimes. Took about, I think, 30 years to catch him. And then he died recently, but he leaked a lot of classified documents.
That's the wrong Robert Hansen.
That is the wrong Robert Hansen.
You go back to it, you're on the right page.
Okay, no, I can. It shows at the top. There we go. That's when he died recently, 2023. You know, both are criminals, but this is the cyber criminal.
It's kind of hard to get a gauge because this is the first time we've done presentations with a dominantly computer science group, and I'm not really sure of the workings until now. You're very much on the more programming sides of things. Yeah. We're very much more on the defending and how can we mess this up in the best way possible without getting caught.
Your captures work, but you know, taking a secure design to programming really helps because, as you can see there, if it's not secured enough, we can just breach it. A little tool, some words, we're already in a system.
And if I had to guess, that development it's a time-consuming process. You spend hours, probably days or months on a project to build some software. But the biggest danger that we wanted to highlight here is that those softwares that you make are going to have vulnerabilities. And you need to have constant attention to detail to see what can be exploited and what cannot be exploited. And even if you do that, people are still going to be persistent and deterministic to get into your system. It takes one unpatched system, like we mentioned before in the presentation, for everything to go bad. That's what happened with WannaCry. It took one unpatched system for it to affect the UK health system.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it took one person to find a domain and stop it. Single points of failures is one of the biggest things that we highlight in cybersecurity. If there's one system that's compromised, the whole organization.
Have any further comments?
Personally, I wish we could have had you guys do a hands-on activity, but I'm not sure if you guys would be familiar with it, or if you have Kali Linux. And it would be a long time downloading it, running everyone through the ropes.
Who has used Linux here before? Okay, thank God at least. You know, that's good.
Yeah, a lot of our classes use Linux for like submitting projects that we code.
Oh, like GitHub, curl, that kind of thing. Cool.
Are you guys using like virtual machines?
Yeah.
So you guys use virtual machines, you have Kali Linux. Y'all could have walked along through with us.
Well,
It takes a while to install.
we use the box machines. Like I have Ubuntu running on my computer, but not everyone would. And I use that for personal stuff.
Do you access like SimSpace or something?
So what?
Do you have like SimSpace or something or no?
Yeah, I do on my like personal computer. Yeah.
But like for classes, is it a virtual machine you install or is it just online?
It's online. It's if you don't know what the Fox servers is, the UTSA like hosts these servers, so computer scientists can like code and do stuff in Bash, even if they don't have that system requirement and stuff. It's pretty good for like that kind of stuff, just backseat learning and whatnot.
Alrighty. Cool. I mean, me personally, I know a little bit of Python. Java, a little bit I have experience with. I do not like coding, but you know, if I can do this, you guys surely can too. You know, basic cybersecurity concepts, really fun once you start like actually throwing yourself into it.
There's a program you guys have my undying respect. I hate Java with a passion.
I do
I'm
too.
sure you guys use Java. Python, AI, everything's now leaning towards it because of AI, so I have to bring us to that. C#, I don't know what that is.
Only C I know is Holy C. That's about it. But let me end it off with saying, you know, we have an important job. We're securing systems, but you guys do too. Keep this in mind. You know, if you see a vulnerability or feel like you have one, check it with someone. Please don't just submit code to be beta tested by the population for finding bugs. If you can find a bug or a vulnerability, report it. Have fun if you're programming.
Speaking of which, update your laptops if there's an update. That's the biggest takeaway from this.
Upgrade your systems, please. All right.
Thank y'all. And I highly recommend checking out Cyber Jedi. They do a lot of research, they do a lot of cybersecurity stuff. So if you are interested in that, I would highly recommend talking to them and like going to their events.
We're open to anyone to join our groups, even if you don't have as much cybersecurity experience. We kind of just throw you in. We help you learn the ropes to get a basic concept of what does this even mean, what is a Kali or something like that.
I promise you we're very user-friendly. This might have been a lot if you especially never dealt with any pen testing. But I guarantee you, this is it's very hands-on. And from a cybersecurity side, we can say this: there's not a lot of red teaming for our classes. It's very much blue team oriented, and everything's more learned and not applied. So if you want to learn more about cybersecurity a real way, come check us out. Thank y'all.